You know what? Sometimes you just really struggle to make a video. I want to talk about the Xbox business update, but every single time I just come across the fact that I'm not that interested in it. It really did not answer, the fundamental questions that I think as an Xbox customer, or even as a person like myself from the outside looking in, that you would want answered. This was extremely reactionary to the community. It was something that seemed kind of planned last minute, something that was put forward to soften the blow of the announcements, and was kind of put, with a lot of like marketing fluff and jargon to make you feel good, but really without giving you the fundamental answers that you're looking for. So as I've been going through, kind of this video time after time, take after take, I'm just thinking to myself, man, I am not that interested in actually putting this out. But I did create a video, I think about 10 days ago, talking about the rumors. So I feel like it's only right that I create a follow up, now that we have something concrete to go off of. So to help me through the journey of this, what we're going to do is we're just going to watch the video that they put forward. We're going to watch it together. I might talk over it. I might fast forward some parts. If you really want to know, then I assume that you would, kind of go out and find out for yourself. But in any case, we're gonna go through most of the videos together and I'll give you my thoughts as we go. So, nice
Hello
logo.
and welcome to the
Look
official
at these
Xbox
chairs, man.
podcast. I'm your host, Tina
I like
Ambini,
these
and we have a
stools.
very special episode today, as you can
They
probably
look so
tell by the
comfortable.
fact that I'm joined by Phil, Sarah, and Matt. Welcome.
It should have just been
And
Phil.
we're going to talk
Just Phil.
about some updates at Xbox. We want to talk about game exclusivity. We want to talk about Activision Blizzard now that
Yep.
they're part of our portfolio, how that might be an impact on Game Pass. And we want to talk about hardware too and how all of this fits into the strategy at Xbox. So where should we start, Phil?
Well, when we originally had planned for the show, starting back in December, I think we probably would have started with Activision Blizzard, maybe talked a little bit about the exclusivity with some of the news coming up, and then hardware. But we've had some unforeseen news that has come out. So let's just go and tackle the exclusivity question, because I know it's on the minds of a lot of people. We hear from the community, and that's an important input for us. So we made the decision that we're going to take 4 games to the other consoles, just 4 games, not a change to our kind of fundamental exclusive strategy.
That's a lie. Did you get catch that? He says that it's not a change to his fundamental Xbox strategy. And yet, when they were buying Bethesda just a few years ago, he said something akin to the fact that this is about putting exclusive titles to platforms where Game Pass exists. That's not verbatim, but it is pretty close to the original quote. So that is a fundamental shift away from that because PlayStation and Nintendo do not support Game Pass. So you can't say that it's not a fundamental shift in your strategy. I wish you would just say it with your chest. You're changing things around, you're experimenting maybe. He says later that they have to learn. So, just say it. Just say it with your chest.
We're making these decisions for some specific reasons. We make every decision really with the long-term health of Xbox in mind. And long-term health of Xbox means a growing platform, our games performing, building the best platform for creators, reaching as many players as we can. We're always looking to learn as a leadership team and to grow. And we think this is an interesting point in time for us to use what some of the other platforms have right now.
By using what some of the other platform has, it means actual gamers because like everybody's abandoning Xbox. So yeah, you mean that you actually want to reach gamers with your games because you don't have enough of them on your own platform. Yeah. So it is what it is.
To help grow our franchises, so we're going to do that.
So these 4 titles, what are they? Can you say?
I'm not going to name those games. The teams that are building those games have announced plans that are not too far away.
So I don't believe in insiders, right? And this rumor mill kind of got propagated throughout the entire time. But since we were talking about rumors and confirmations and everything like that, apparently, okay, from these insiders, quote unquote, is going to be grounded, Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, and Sea of Thieves. So take that for what you will. I don't necessarily believe them, but I don't see any reason why they would be wrong at this moment because clearly they at least knew that there was going to be this shift in strategy. And I fully believe that there were supposed to be other games that they were supposed to bring forward and that they are not going to talk about it right now. But now that they, kind of like, I don't know, they put just the tip in, the rest of the shaft is eventually going to get in there as well. So, I don't know. I also don't really love that. That analogy. Sorry. My apologies. I should be professionals or something. Let's let's just keep on.
As we know, game teams put a lot of energy into their announcements with the partners. So I don't want to take anything away from those teams. So I won't be talking about the titles specifically, but I think when they
Actually, that's interesting because why? I feel like compared to Starfield and Halo and Gears and Forza and all of these other big tentpole franchises that were heavily rumored during the week, seeing something like Grounded and Pentiment and Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves, are like people will pretty much almost dismiss them. Almost with a grateful sigh of relief, be like, is it just those four? Nobody even cares about those four. Like truly, who cares about Grounded? Like really, who cares about Pentiment? Who cares about Pentiment? Like, I think it's funny because he says that he wants to learn from this strategy, right? It's like, but what are you gonna learn? Like, nobody cared about Pentiment back then when it was just on Xbox and PC, and no one's gonna care about it when it's on Switch and PS5 as well, I guess. Like, Pentiment, really, this is the game you're supposed to learn from. That's why I don't trust these insiders, because it doesn't make any sense. If you're going to learn, don't you want to at least put something that might be tantalizing to a particular audience? Now, people keep saying that, oh, Hi-Fi Rush is perfect for the Switch. And I get it. I get it from the aesthetic perspective because it's very cartoony, it's very animated, it has an art style that fits well with sort of like the rest of Nintendo's lineup. You blink your eyes or you squint your eyes a little bit and you can even see like it being from like a Nintendo partner studio or something like that. But the thing is, Hi-Fi Rush is a rhythm game. And rhythm games are not that appealing. So it's like out of the four things, what's supposed to be like the big tentpole? No, okay, not tentpole, but what's supposed to be the big attraction here? Hi-Fi Rush, isn't it? Because it's an exclusive game, so it's a rhythm game. It's extremely niche. Anyway, like it might find 100,000 players somewhere else, and then that's it. Like, I guess that's more money. Whatever. Unless they're going to put them in subscription services, but I don't see them putting it into PlayStation Plus or anything like that. So, I don't know. I don't know, but yet I feel like Hi-Fi Rush really needs a subscription service to even get people to try. Because what you're gonna do, you're gonna put Hi-Fi Rush as a $40 title on PlayStation. That's not gonna sell. It isn't. Pentiment is a book. The less said about that, the better. So then you have Grounded. I don't. Is Grounded it? I dismissed Grounded pretty much as soon as it was announced because I was like, nope. So I truly have no pulse as to the health, to the state, to the quality of Grounded. But is that it? I guess it could go on the Switch, but is that it? Because the thing is, you're going up against, if you put it on the Switch, you put Grounded on the Switch, you're going up against Nintendo's own IP. And even as a person who hates the Switch myself, I can tell you that the Switch's titles and IP are far more compelling than I imagine Grounded would be. So then that leaves Sea of Thieves. And that could be an interesting one, I guess. But I don't know. I feel like if you'd done it a year ago, you would have had more success with Sea of Thieves. Because the appeal with Sea of Thieves would be, oh, you get to play with your friends, right? But then PlayStation just dropped Helldivers 2, which is, I guess, an accidental or fortunate juggernaut on their title, on their platform now. Are people going to leave Helldivers for Sea of Thieves? I don't know. So I hope that the insiders are wrong because I hope that if they are going to actually create this experiment, that they're actually going to go in with titles that might appeal to somebody. What do they have? Definitely not Starfield. That's garbage. Not Halo. Also garbage. What else do they have that might be appealing? Maybe Forza Horizon 5. I feel like if you put a Forza Horizon 5 on a Switch, that will sell like that game busters because I'm not even sure if the Switch has any kind of like arcade racing game outside of like the kart franchise, Mario Kart and those kinds of experiences. I think Forza Horizon 5 is just so different from that it definitely has an identity. You could put it on PlayStation as well, of course, because PlayStation doesn't. I mean, they do because they have Need for Speed, but PlayStation in their own first party portfolio, what they take care of is the simulation genre. They've got Gran Turismo doing well for them. But if you put a Forza Horizon 5, then I guess it would be like a Need for Speed Unbound or Heat or whatever. and it will kind of fit into that slot. And I could see people playing with that, especially if it was part of PlayStation Plus. But again, I don't think that you port these games over to put them on the subscription service. So yeah, I don't know. Out of the four titles that are currently rumored by these insiders, I'm like, this just seems like a waste of time in terms of an experiment, unless you're just looking for, a few 100,000 sales, which I guess technically can still be a lot of money. But in any case, let's keep listening.
Come out, um, it'll make sense.
Can we say if either of those titles are Starfield or Indiana Jones?
They are not Starfield or Indiana Jones.
Well,
So right there, this is a sticking point in the community right now because a lot of people are saying that he said that those titles will not be Indiana Jones and Starfield, which is a great thing. First of all, I fully believe in platform exclusivity. Right, I fully believe exclusive should remain locked to their platform. I do not support this move whatsoever that I'd have in the business update of putting 4 of their games on PlayStation or Switch. I don't support it. I don't even support it on PC. I just kind of like, I don't fight it on PC, but I'm not a proponent of it either. I just think that a lot of people that say that games shouldn't go to PC, I think they're being alarmist. But at the same time, I can definitely sympathize with their point of view. So, in any case, what he was talking about there, it's not that these games will never come to PlayStation 5 or Switch, it's that they are not specifically one of the 4 games that will go to PlayStation 5 or Switch at this time. So it's important for people to notice the distinction there. He was directly answering about the 4 games that they're announcing today. I guess they're kind of semi-announcing it. It's a very weird situation. But let's keep
what
going.
was the criteria in how the team was thinking about selecting those 4 titles?
Let me start a little bit outside of that, and then I'll get to the 4 specific games that we're talking about right now. Because the fundamental decision driver for any decision that we make, anything we're going to talk about today, is the long-term health of Xbox. That we're running a growing platform that is reaching more players,
They want
that
more
our
money.
games are having as much success as possible. And I do have a fundamental belief that over the next 5 or 10 years, exclusive games that are exclusive to one piece of hardware, are going to be a smaller and smaller part of the game industry. And that's not some great insight, because if you look at the
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because there he's making a prediction for not only his platform, but their competitors' platforms as well. So when you take a look at that statement, exclusive games will become less and less a kind of like exclusive games that are locked down to one piece of hardware will become less and less a part of the industry. This will definitely be true for their platform at Xbox, 100%. It will be somewhat true for PlayStation, especially when you take a look at live service games. PlayStation has definitely already stated that their live service games are basically going to appear day and date on PC. So it's not wrong about that. And some of the single player games will eventually make their way to PC as well. So, example, Horizon Forbidden West has already been announced for PC as well. So you're going to see this kind of like 2 or 3 year shift. So he's absolutely right about that. I think Nintendo is going to keep doing what Nintendo does and basically be like, hey, this is our games, you get our platform. At least that's what it looks like now. I think it would be super interesting if 10 years from now, Nintendo is also putting games on PC, because I wonder how that's going to affect the market dynamics for that platform specifically. But yeah, let's keep going.
the last 10 years and what the biggest games are today, it's a natural place. Whether it's one console and PC, multiple consoles, mobile console and PC, you see big games landing on multiple platforms.
He's definitely saying this though as a way to sugarcoat and softball what they're going to do. Like, what he's saying is true, but it also doesn't answer like, hey, you're directly going to put your games on your competitors' platforms. Like that's a slightly different thing from what he's saying. Because PC is an open ecosystem. It doesn't belong to Microsoft, it doesn't belong to anyone. So yeah, it's slightly different.
And we want to be a great platform for creators that are trying to realize that potential. But now back to the specifics of the question on these four specific titles. We looked at games that are over a year old, so they've been on Xbox and PC for a while. A couple of the games are community-driven games,
So
new
live
games
service games,
that kind of
community-driven?
first iterations of a franchise that have reached their full potential, I'd say, on Xbox and PC. There's always growth. Franchises that we obviously want to continue to invest in, part of having the ability to continue to invest is that the businesses behind those franchises continue.
They want more
We think
money.
it's important that these service-based games that have communities behind them, that they can have confidence that they're going to exist in the
That's
future. So
definitely live
two of
service.
them kind of community-driven games that will end up on
So
other
two are live
platforms and
service
give us the
games.
ability to continue to invest in them. We think that's great for the business and great for the communities, more players to play with. I'd say two of the other games are smaller games that were never really meant to be built as kind of platform exclusives and all the fanfare that goes around that, but games that our teams really wanted to go build that we love.
He's basically saying passion projects. So I guess that makes sense, right? The true live service games will be Grounded and Sea of Thieves, and then the passion projects will be Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment. So yeah, it's interesting because it's interesting the way that they're going about this. And I really feel like this cannot be like this. I feel like this cannot be the end of the initial foray. I feel like those games are not gonna give. They're not gonna give enough sell-through data, to actually see how this strategy will work long term. You've got to put a big game in there and see what happens to a big game, or let's say a Blade, like Marvel's Blade. I think that will be a big game that will have mass appeal, that isn't necessarily locked down to the Xbox identity as of yet, because people are going to feel betrayed if you put Halo or Gears or Forza on PlayStation. But if you were to put a Marvel's Blade, you could even blame it on Marvel rather than yourselves. So, I think that would be the one that I would be, me personally, I would look for what would be the impact of something like putting Marvel's Blade on PlayStation. That would be far more interesting than any of these four games that they're talking about today.
Supporting creative endeavors across our studios, regardless of size. And as they've realized their full potential on Xbox and PC, we see an opportunity to utilize the other platforms as a place to just drive more business value out of those games, allowing us
They want more
to
money.
invest in maybe future iterations of those, so sequels to those, or just other games like that in our portfolio. And when we don't damage Xbox and we can grow our business using what other platforms have and to help us
Paying
with
customers.
that, we're going to do that. And that's really the story behind these four games. And last thing I'll say, looking forward, I think there is an interesting story for us of introducing Xbox franchises to players on other platforms to get them more interested in Xbox. We think there's a
I'm sorry, that is not gonna happen. No one is going to play a Hi-Fi Rush. No one's going to play Sea of Thieves and think to themselves, I wonder what else Xbox has. That is not going to happen, man. That is not going to happen. In order for that to happen, you have to introduce your big games. I mean, listen, there's a reason that PlayStation isn't porting over a Concrete Genie to PC. Like, no one's gonna be like, oh, this is what PlayStation is like. No, no one. If you want to attract customers away from their main console or the main kind of like gaming platform, you have to give them games that are super enticing and super compelling so that after they are done, they just absolutely want more. So, the funny thing is that it kind of reflects what Sean Layden has said about the idea behind going and taking their games to PC, because they wanted those PC gamers to be like, hey, this is what you could have on PlayStation. This is some of our best. And he said it specifically. You take some of your best games and you put it over there. You don't take your middling titles or your little passion projects or just little, like, imagine if they had put Dreams on PC. That would have been interesting. But would people from PC be like, oh, they have Dreams on PlayStation. Let me go see what else they have. No. Number one, Dreams is a very small title. It's a niche title. Number two, if they loved Dreams, if they were like, oh my God, I love these creative, engine types of games. I want to do more. What is the PlayStation has? PlayStation has nothing else like that. Like, they will go, they will look, and they'll be like, oh, that was it. That was literally the only thing you were interested in from our stable. No. So you put a God of War, you put a Horizon, you put those big tentpole franchises so that you can be like, yep, you can come and get more of this if you come over here. Do they have Ghost of Tsushima on PC yet? If not, I guess that would be one of the things that they should have. But I think they do. I'm sure they would. I'm not sure. But let's keep going.
a good brand value for Xbox there. So 4 games, no promise beyond that. So if you're on those other platforms and you see these 4 games coming, please don't take it as some signal that everything's coming. It's not. And we're going to learn.
So when you are thinking about the future and this concept of live service games,
Now, one thing that he said there is that, of course, this is not a sign that future games are going to come, but he said the same thing about Xbox games going to PC. There's now, screenshots on Twitter when he first announced that certain games were going to go to PC day and date. And then he basically said that not all Xbox games will make their ways to PC. And then just a few years later, he said that all Xbox Series games will make their way to PC. So listen, Phil always engages in doublespeak. And I'm sorry, you should not take him at his word, okay? If you're taking him at his word here, then you are new to the scene, and I'm just here to warn you away from that.
games that can benefit from bigger audiences, new audiences, how does that apply to future titles and how you're applying that criteria there?
Yeah, there's really no fundamental change to how we think about exclusivity. We just came out of Developer Direct, which was an awesome show, where we showed great games that are coming to Xbox and
They were
PC
middling,
and cloud,
except for Hellblade
which
2.
really makes them accessible to hundreds of millions of people.
Which was niche.
So it's this kind of we're really focused on a couple platforms and what's going to show up there. But our key of play the games you want with the people you want anywhere you want when everybody plays, we all win. These have been part of our strategy for years.
These lame ass catchphrases that they have. Oh my god. Man, you know what? You know what I would love? I would love like Xbox, the best place to play. Or like the best games only on Xbox. Just something that says like we're here, we're committed, and we are going to win this console war. Like Jesus Christ. This softball, like, oh, let's be all kumbaya. Oh, play wherever you want. Oh my God, yeah, man. Just wherever you are with anyone. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Xbox, what's that? You don't need it. You don't need it, man. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, no, just stop doing that. I just, so lame.
And will continue to be. Our focus is on how do we continue to grow the games industry by reaching more players in more places. And how do we grow Xbox as part of that? Xbox is a hardware platform, Xbox is a publisher of great games, and Xbox as a platform for the world's best creators.
Mm-hmm. And then knowing that, how do we think about our first-party games and Game Pass?
Yeah, well, to build on what Phil just said, one thing I would add, when you were talking about growth, is just that we've sort of seen this inversion over the last 5 years where it used to be that the platform was the biggest thing.
That's right.
And the games would sort of tuck in within the platform. Today, big games like a Roblox or a Fortnite could actually be bigger than any one platform. And that really has changed the way that we think about things. So in the midst of all that, I think we at First Party can come back to sort of some core principles.
So here, Matt Booty, I'm not even sure why the other two are here. I think Phil Spencer could answer all these questions on his own. But the thing is, he talks about games that are bigger than a singular platform, right? Talking about Call of Duty, I guess. Talking about Minecraft, you would talk about Fortnite, Roblox. Maybe Power World would eventually become one of those games. The problem is you're not talking about those games today. You're not talking about games of that nature. Like games such as Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, Grounded, and the other one, Sea of Thieves. If those rumors are to be believed, have not even maximized what they could reach on the platforms you're already on. Like PC gamers are not going crazy for Hi-Fi Rush. PC gamers are not going crazy for Grounded or Sea of Thieves or all of these other games that you have. They have an audience, sure, but they are not going crazy for them. So for me, I was like, well, if you really wanted to grow the Xbox business, and that was really what you were about, wouldn't you try to make those games more appealing to those gamers there? Because PC gamers is 800 million of them or something? Like 200 million monthly concurrent Steam users or users on Steam alone? And you have your own platform. So why wouldn't you just focus on those particular things? But no, you want to basically say like, oh, these games are bigger than like shut up. You're talking about your games. And since this is not the type of game that you're talking about, then why? Unless you were going to make an announcement that, again, something like a Blade or something that, kind of like has a big transmedia presence is going to be, kind of cross-platform. So I don't know. This is again a lot of fluff. Just say what you want to say and speak on your own. Stop using this shield of the industry. Just talk about you and what you're going to do.
first, that all of our games will be on the Xbox platform. Second, all of our games will go into Game Pass on day one. And third, we know that Game Pass will only be available on Xbox.
So there is something that was worth saying, okay? So the thing that matters there is that Game Pass day and date is still going to be a thing. Now, I have a huge problem with this because I believe that Game Pass day and date is absolutely something that caps the amount of budgetary input that they can put into a game, you know? And it's going to be interesting because they say that all of their games are going to go into Game Pass day one, but they don't name drop COD, which is interesting. I'm not saying that they are lying about it, but I'm saying that if you were going to make this huge commitment, wouldn't you say including future titles from Call of Duty will go into Game Pass day one just to remove that from the conversation? So they might still put Call of Duty day one on Game Pass, and I wonder how that is actually going to influence the market dynamics. Is it going to cannibalize sales on Xbox? Is it going to lead to further Game Pass growth? Is it going to convert people from PlayStation, to go there and be like, hey, I can have access to this game day and date for a low price? What's going to be the market dynamic there? Or maybe it will convince people that are already on PC to get Call of Duty through their own Windows store rather than getting it through Steam or something. So I think if what he says there is to be believed at face value and Call of Duty goes into Game Pass day and date in the future, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And that will be another point, I guess, in the timeline that I'm interested to see what happens when such a big game is now shifted away or has shifted the strategy in such a major way. Those are moments that, you kind of like, they make this fun, this whole speculation and analysis part of the community where we find ourselves. Those are moments, those are like flashpoint moments at the first time that a brand new Call of Duty full package game goes into Game Pass day and date, and then is still made available on PlayStation and maybe on Switch at the full retail price, and also on Steam as well, right? At full retail price. What happens with those market dynamics? So I'll be looking forward to seeing that. But aside from Call of Duty and kind of like that particular purchase, I think that when you take a look at Disavowed, when you take a look at Indiana Jones, when you take a look at so many of the games that they show coming from their own first party studio, it's almost like you can see the budgetary constraint that was put on those games. You can see the lack of voice acting and animation and the lack of fluidity. Hellblade 2 has that fidelity, that graphical fidelity that is absolutely, just show-stopping, which they've always had, and they inherited it, and I believe they've made it better. However, didn't improve the combat, because that's another thing that you're supposed to do when you are part of now first party studios. You're not supposed to stay at the same level that you were before. You are supposed to improve dramatically because now you are under the protection and the financial kind of like resources that a big publisher can put forward, especially when a publisher is also a platform holder. And yet with Hellblade 2, they haven't shown us these gameplay segments so that we can just look at it and be like, yep, you definitely improved it. It's always brief snippets, always here and there, cutting this, cutting that. So it will be interesting to see. But Game Pass Day and Date is staying. I will keep fighting against it because I believe that there is a cost to Game Pass Day and Date. And if nothing else, it is to the quality of the games that we get. The moniker of Game Pass Day, of a Game Pass game is not a favorable one, and that's for good reason, because so far they have sullied the franchises that they had, even the temple franchises. Take a look at Halo Infinite or Forza Motorsport, which are games that just come out and they are literally a third of what they used to be, and they fall far short of the expectations that the fan base puts upon them. So, Game Pass Day and Date is not proven to equate to the continued release of quality titles at a big AAA level. So we'll see what happens in the future. Oh, and then he also said that Game Pass will only be available on Xbox consoles. That makes sense. PlayStation and Nintendo were never going to allow any version of Game Pass to be on their platforms. So whether or not it comes from PlayStation and Nintendo refusing to put it there, or it's from Xbox deciding that Game Pass is going to be like the one major draw card to their platform, this was never going to go anywhere but Xbox and PC.
So there's sort of starting points
and cloud.
For us. As Phil mentioned, there are games today that you can play that only can be found on Xbox. And at the same time, we want
Are there are there games that can only be found on Xbox? Because I feel like all of your games can be found on PC too. And I'm sorry, but Xbox isn't PC and PC isn't Xbox. So, yeah. Another lie?
to bring more of our games to more players. So we're going to continue to look at that. Kind of moving aside, though, from some of those and thinking more about what does it really mean for the player, to me, the two key things are cross-play and
This man
cross-save.
looks tired.
Those things allow us to deliver on the promise of Xbox, which
This will be interesting, right? So crossplay and cross save. Does that mean that if I play Hi-Fi Rush on my Xbox, that I'll be able to pick up that save and carry it over to my PlayStation? Because I guess I'll have a Microsoft account. That would be cool. Actually, that would be good if they can make that happen. So yeah, that's something to look forward to.
is play with your friends where they are, play on the devices you want, play the games you want. So that is really only possible.
Play the games you want, unless those are games that we've decided that no matter what we're saying, we're going to keep them exclusive. The mixed messaging in this thing is tremendous.
At a practical level when you know that your saves and your player are going to be able to move across all those parts. So not all of our games today are necessarily built to take advantage of that. There still will be some games that don't. As we bring more teams into the Xbox family, there's some catch up to do as we get there. But that cross-play, cross-save is like so fundamental to what we're doing, and I think is something that we as first party get such a good benefit from being so close to the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's
This
one
is
of
so
the things, like you
rehearsed.
said, all of our games are always in Game Pass. And so I'm excited to announce, with the coming together that we had with Activision Blizzard King, that Activision and Blizzard games are coming to Game Pass, starting with Diablo 4 on March 28th, which I'm...
See, this would have been the perfect time to name drop Call of Duty as well. And I don't know why they didn't do that. Maybe they were just caught up in the moment and they forgot to. But yeah, this is coming to Game Pass members. It's been revealed later after the fact that this will not be coming to Game Pass core members. I don't really think anybody was ever expecting that, but it is interesting to know that it will not be the 34 million Game Pass users, as she's about to say.
super, super excited to share today. And it's all part of our commitment to make the Xbox experience and the games that we build as widely available as possible. So now the 34 million Game Pass members can all enjoy the fantastic experience of Diablo 4.
Amazing.
Yeah, so she says there that the 34 million Game Pass users can all enjoy the fantastic. And that's a lie. Because if you have Game Pass Core, and yes, you are counted as part of those 34 million people, then you will not be able to enjoy Diablo 4. I guess it's just a slip, it is accidental. But at the same time, it's again just one more lie that they are telling in this particular interview.
Can we come back to the point, Phil, you mentioned at the top, this isn't really a change in strategy for us. Can you recap for me how it isn't?
Yeah, and I thought both Matt and Sarah did a really nice job of talking about what we're doing on Xbox, where we're going. If you take a platform feature like Xbox Play Anywhere, which has been a promise that we've made on our first party games, that you can buy our game once, you're going to play across Xbox and Windows. I think we're the only platform that does this. That makes it possible for you not only to play with your friends wherever they are, but to know that you actually have multiple entitlements to the game.
One of the funny things is that Phil seems like a great boss. Like, Phil seems like a guy that you would want to have as your leader because he just, he's always constantly giving praise to his other team members and teammates and everything like that. And as much as I disagree with him on so many things when it comes to the way that he's running his business, I think that if I was working under him and I was being paid and I didn't have to worry about whether these decisions were going to work out at the end or whatever, I think I'd be like, yeah, like this guy seems like he has a great personality, and I hope that that personality that we see in these interviews and in public is actually how it is working for him, because yeah, he's always constantly praising his team, so I can give him that. I do appreciate a person that actually says like, hey, I'm not the only one building all of this, so kudos to him for that.
I think that's a technology I would love to see applied to more platforms. But it is this view that people are going to play Xbox in multiple places, whether it's play the games you want with the people you want, anywhere you want, whether it's content community in cloud, whether it's when everybody plays, we all win. Like we've had different taglines, different strategy, kind of words that we've used, but always with
Still
this
lame.
view that Xbox is a platform for creators who want to reach the most players. Our investments in xCloud, our investments in franchises like Minecraft and now Call of Duty and other large franchises so that we learn how to build those. This has been a strategy that we've been on for, I'd say, a decade. It's not about one device. It's not about games in service of a device, but rather the devices that people want to play on should be in service of making the games as big.
He's basically saying that if you have an Xbox console, it doesn't matter. Like, you're not that important to them and their long-term strategy. So it is what it is.
And popular as they possibly could be. Because really a healthy creator community on Xbox, a healthy creator community in gaming all up, is the thing that all of us as game players.
You know, he talks about creator communities and everything, but for me, I'm like, okay, so did the creators tell you to release the Series S? Because where did that come from? Did that come from creators? Were creators like, hey, we want you to create a low power box that's going to make it extremely difficult to port our games and all the features that we want to your platform? Like, there's all this double speak, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but no. If you had wanted to if you knew that you were going to support PC and you're going to heavily encourage your creators to release their games on PC because you make that easy as part of your platform and so the infrastructure that you have behind the scenes, why would you have created a Series S? You would have just said that, hey, listen, we are going to create a powerful primary console and you can publish on that. However, if you want to reach more people, we encourage you to optimize for PC because we'll be making it easy and available for people to, you know, buy their games and run it on their laptops and everything. And we can supplement that power with the cloud and whatever. I think that the Series S is proof that this whole thing about creators being at the center of everything they do, that's absolute nonsense. It's absolute nonsense.
Should be voting for, because that's the thing that will lead to the best long-term success and growth in this industry.
And my understanding, just from listening and learning from you three over the past few weeks, just understanding what's happening with Xbox, is that we see trends with player behavior where people are playing on multiple devices. That is the reality. And we have put some games out on multiple platforms before. So my understanding is that that's been good for players. How does that come back to the business with all of that in mind?
Yeah, as you said, we have shipped games on other platforms. In fact, realistically, if you look with the addition of Activision and Blizzard and ZeniMax, we're one of the largest game publishers on PlayStation. We're one of the largest publishers on the Nintendo Switch, especially when you put Minecraft into the equation as well. And now we're one of the largest publishers on mobile platforms as well.
I mean, that's a half truth, right? Because they have shipped games on other platforms, but the thing is, the majority of those titles are titles that they inherited. Right, like Minecraft, you bought after it was already multi-platform. Call of Duty, obviously, Fallout 76, you know, and kind of like a lot of the legacy Bethesda IP were already there. You know, when you look at what's that Tokyo game? Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop. Those are games that were exclusive to PlayStation before you created the purchase. So, again, it's like, well, yes, they have things like Minecraft Dungeons and I think Minecraft Legends, which were titles that came under their stewardship and they did put on PlayStation, but those games were not tremendously massive games. And the little banner images that they had there are talking about ABK franchises that, again, it's like you're looking at Overwatch, and that's already something that was already on PlayStation. So it's not so much that you have, you know, shipped a lot of games multi-platforms, is that you've inherited a lot of games that were already multi-platform, and therefore you kind of moved that way because you couldn't really make those franchises and IP and properties less profitable after you bought them.
And that's not something that we want to back away from. We want to continue to be building great games that millions and millions of people can love, and that they can play those games where they want to go play.
So the thing is, you keep saying that you want to keep building these games that people can love and they can play those games wherever they want to go play. But most of your games are not going to be available on PlayStation and Switch. And is this double speak? Like, just stop double speaking. Just say, hey, we believe in exclusive titles to sell our consoles, But at the same time, when games do not meet financial expectations, we have two choices. Either we can end those franchises and leave it as it is, or we can ship it on other platforms to hopefully recoup some of that money back. That will hopefully make further investment possible. Like, just say it straight up. Your platform isn't selling, and therefore you need to get more money if you're going to keep investing in those franchises. That's it. That's all. That would be so much simpler. And honestly, I would respect you for that. And then you could make certain arguments as to, you listen, we are projecting that the Starfields, the Blades, the Indiana Jones, those will do great on our own platforms. Therefore, we have no financial need to bring them to PlayStation or Switch, But it would just be easy. We will all know it's about the money, and that would be that. It would be so much simpler than trying to say, oh, all of these millions of people, they can play anywhere. But not really, because we still care about exclusivity. But also, we don't want exclusivity. And exclusivities are bad for the industry, and they don't help to grow the industry. And industry this and industry that. Like, just stop. Stop with the doublespeak, Phil. Please. Just say what it is. I think what is it? I think that your customers and your fan base are mature enough to handle the truth, if you would just give it to them.
But we do understand the business success that Xbox has to have. Us as leaders in this business, the system today, the system that all companies that we play video games from, is a world of, you got to be growing your business. Growth in an Xbox business is critical to the long-term health of Xbox.
Money.
Many people know I've been on Xbox for over 20 years, and I want to make sure Xbox is in the best position for the next 20 years. That means healthy player community, healthy creator community, and healthy business.
So I like the fact that he basically recommitted themselves to that they will not leave this particular space. Okay, I've said okay, this is a bit too early because I think it's Sarah Bonnet talks a little bit later about Xbox hardware, but I've said this. Xbox cannot leave the console. Like, it cannot leave it behind. People are saying that Microsoft somehow is going to become just an app or a third-party publisher, and they're going to get rid of the console, or they're going to give their consoles away to other manufacturers to make. And I think none of those realities can be true. We'll talk about it more when she mentions it.
When we look at opportunities to allow more people to play, more people to engage, more people to buy, more people to subscribe, it's all about putting Xbox in the best position. And our hardware is a critical component of that. The absolute best experience somebody has on Xbox is hardware that your team builds and that people play on. But that's not going to be everybody.
I didn't know that
fully
hardware was
accepted
part of
that
her
we're going to
team.
have Xbox players across all kinds of devices.
That's
So I
interesting.
think a lot of people think about 2023 as this incredible year for gaming, and in a lot of ways it was. There was some really amazing releases that I think we all enjoyed. But what were the signals behind the scenes that maybe indicated how we wanted to look at the future of Xbox and how we kind of keep up with the industry?
Yeah, such a good question. And I think it's, as people who care about the industry, which I assume is people who are watching this, it was an amazing year. Some great launches, some of the games that I think will stand the test of time and people will be talking about a decade from now. But it's an industry that didn't really grow. And what happens when an industry doesn't grow? You end up with some job eliminations, which we had. We had even our own hard decisions to make about building a sustainable business for ourselves, but in no way were we alone in that. When you think about a healthy industry, I want players who believe that they will find the best games on the platforms that they love. I want people who invest their careers in working here to feel like this is a place that they can be successful. And that really is down to being part of an industry that is growing. If you listen to Lisa Su, the AMD CEO, she'll say that AMD-powered consoles are likely to decline in 2024.
So that's interesting, right? Because it talks about AMD powered consoles, and if I got my technical specifications right, I believe that the Switch is an NVIDIA, NVIDIA, whatever, powered console. So it's excluded from the statement from Lisa Su. The only AMD powered consoles that I know of are specifically going to be the PlayStation and the Xbox. Now the PlayStation is setting records, breaking sales left and right. So it's not that. So the stagnation or the decrease in sales from AMD powered hardware, especially when it comes to consoles, is going to come from the Xbox camp, because you guys just cannot sell these things. And the reason you cannot sell these things is because you do not have the games that are compelling. And one of the reasons I think that your games are not compelling is because you are not giving them the budgetary output or outlay that something like a PlayStation will do. You know, you're not giving these AAA games of yours $100 to $200 million to come out and be something that is smoking hot, something that people just have to get. Unfortunately, you have capped, or it seems that you have capped a lot of these projects, and you have tried to scope them down and manage them so that they will cost you less money as an initial investment, so that you could justify putting them on Game Pass day and date. And that is again my issue with Game Pass day and date. And until they put consistent titles at a great quality that are going to rival what PlayStation is able to do, I'm sorry, but you cannot tell me that Game Pass Day and Date is not having an effect. Because before Game Pass Day and Date came around, even if I wasn't particularly interested in Xbox titles, I could see them try. We could see like the graphical presentation being up to snuff. You know, so many people talk about Gears 5. As soon as you say something like, oh, PlayStation has the best looking titles, what do they run to? Gears 5. And it's like, Gears 5 was a game that I think while it did go into Game Pass day and date, it was not built with that in mind. Like the initial like budget that was put in there was for an a la carte game, and it was later down the line that they decided, hey, you know what, we're going to use this as a way to like attract people to Game Pass. But ever since then, what have we had that is like graphically stunning, amazing, and everything else? I think the only one that even comes close is going to be Forza Horizon 5, but that is one out of a dozen titles that, you know, have managed to do that at a AAA level. So we need that consistency, because otherwise it's just a blip on the radar, or it's just a fluke.
I think there's an amazing set of games coming in 2024, but if we don't get to growing as an industry, the
More
industry
money.
will struggle. And
No,
today
no.
there's really two
You will
choices
struggle.
on how do you grow the industry.
No,
Do you
just
stay
grow
and have a
you.
fixed number of
Stop
players,
trying to
the
talk
players
about
that
the
we have
industry.
today?
Just talk
Do I
about
find
you.
new ways to monetize those players to get more money from the players that I have? Or do you think about how do I expand the business I have by finding new players and adding those to the base of players that already play? Our focus on Xbox for the last decade has really been on that latter point.
So he talks about how you can either monetize the people that you have, or you can go and find new players. This is again mirrors something that Sean Layden said in the interview with Jay Bowie and Persona on the What's Up PlayStation podcast. If you haven't seen that interview with Sean Layden, you absolutely should, because you know they definitely have the same thread. Because he was also talking about like, hey, yes, I can make my PlayStation fan base more PlayStation-y. You know, I can sell more to them. I can get them to buy more games. I can get them to buy more hardware. But how do I find the next 100 million people, the next $200 million, the next 200 million, you know, people to come into the PlayStation game? And the interesting thing there is that I think that PlayStation has taken this idea of transmedia and has really leaned heavy into it. You know, you have the Gran Turismo movie, you have the Uncharted movie, you have the Last of Us TV show, which was tremendously successful. You have the Twisted Metal TV show, less successful but still enjoyable. And then you have all of these films and movies that are going to come out. And I know that one of the funniest complaints that the PlayStation fan base has is that we actually have more of a roadmap for films and movies and TV shows that are going to come, you know, from a PlayStation Studios kind of initiative than we have for games. And the funny thing there is that it actually speaks to the reality of those industries. In the film industry and the TV show as well, the idea of keeping your production on the wraps until it's basically time to announce it is completely foreign. Like films and games and everything, they can be announced. Sorry, films and TV shows can be announced like 10 years in advance, and people will have no issue with that. And yet, with a game, it's such a big deal that people only know that these games are even being built basically just about when you're ready to ship them. So that's a reality that is always funny. But going back to the initial point, PlayStation has this same problem. They can't just keep selling 120 to 140 million consoles and kind of keep going there back and forth every single generation. They need to get new people to come in. And I think that Sony was like, hey, what's our strength? Well, our strength is movies, film, TV, and video games. So let's combine it and let's create this transmedia initiative so that You know, when you look at Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and everything like that, that's promoting Spider-Man games. You know, when you take a look at a Ghost of Tsushima film is going to come. I think a God of War movie is also going to come. I'm not sure if it's going to be a TV show or a movie. That's also going to come. I think they should definitely lean more into anime, because I'm not sure how you create a Horizon Zero Dawn live action movie, also a live action series. It will cost so much money in order to get a CGI to look good. So I think that would be easier to do in animation. But hey, who am I? I'm not the one making those decisions. But that's what Sony decided to do. Sony decided that they were going to basically attract non-gamers, or they're going to put these franchises in people's faces using the other medium, and then hopefully tempt them into the ecosystem, you know. So if you're a PC gamer and then you never cared about The Last of Us, and then you see The Last of Us TV show, well, then maybe you download The Last of Us on your PC. Then you find out, hey, The Last of Us Part 2 is only available for the PlayStation 5. Okay, I need to know how that plays like. I'm going to go and I'm going to buy it. Now, what these guys are saying is, we're not doing any of that necessarily. They've got a Halo TV show, but they're not leaning into the whole transmedia aspect as much as Sony is. And what they are saying instead is, we're going to put our games on other platforms, or on all the platforms they can possibly put it on. I'm not sure which one is better. I think they are different, and I think they can both succeed. But I think it is interesting how different these strategies are to actually solve the same issue that both platforms are having. Because absolutely, we need to get more gamers in this industry. Gaming should be an industry that at least 1 billion people around the world participate in. And when I say gaming, I don't mean mobile gaming. I'm talking about console quality gaming, because I know that there's 1 billion mobile phone gamers out there, and that's good. That's their area, but it is so different from what I want to experience that I don't count them as gamers when I'm talking about these types of conversations. Yes, they are actual gamers, but again, they're just so different from what we do. So let's keep going.
How do we make sure Xbox is growing for our players, growing for our
Great,
creators?
exclusive, undeniable games.
On our platform,
please give us
will
those.
Grow the Xbox business.
Please give
and
us
put
those.
Xbox in a position to be very strong for years.
And I don't mean give us like put them on PlayStation. I mean give us those, like put them on Xbox and put them on PC, and you will find that people are going to go and find those games where they are. You will never have a need to put them on PlayStation or Switch. If you give us a Fable, or if you give us a Perfect Dark that is undeniable, people will go and they will find it and they will play it wherever you put it initially, and you will never feel the financial need to put them on a PlayStation or a Switch. So please give us those amazing exclusive titles.
Matt, earlier you were talking about these growing gaming communities, how they're incredibly large, and comparable on such a different level when we think about console audiences. Like you mentioned Roblox, you mentioned Fortnite. So how are we're obviously thinking about our responsibility, our hardware responsibility is supporting the growth of gaming communities. How has that actually shown up for the players? Are there other games we can speak to from our portfolio?
Well, as Phil mentioned, I mean, two of the biggest ones for us, Call of Duty and Minecraft, I mean, they are driven just from the bottom up by the communities of people that play those games, which is so great. I think about it, for the player community, it comes down to where are the friends, where are the people you play with, and then equally important is where have you built up your library of games, right? Where have you invested? Where's that library? I think those two things probably are some of the biggest influences on where people choose to play and what device.
So that's an interesting one, right? Where your friends are and everything. This is interesting, but I feel like it's kind of a specious argument, because as all of these multiplayer games kind of go forward, we have more cross-save and cross-progression being promoted in the industry. And I think that trend is going to keep increasing. So where your friends play matters less and less and less. Like, what do I care if you play, Rocket League on an Xbox, as long as we can play together and you're my friend, we can go and do that. The second one is this idea that the digital library locks people in. And I think it locks people that are like myself, and I guess like you, watching. And we have dozens, if not hundreds of games, kind of like digitally locked or even physically locked to a particular platform. So that's cool. That's fine. You've made that investment. You may have $8,000 worth of games. You may have $80,000 worth of games. You may have $800 worth of games. And the fact that you have that library and you want to keep access to that kind of grounds you or anchors you to a particular platform. Cool, great. But so often here they are talking about bringing new gamers, finding different gamers, finding gamers that were not gamers before, and or moving the casual market, moving the person that only really plays one game a year. That might be a Call of Duty, it might be a Madden, it might be a FIFA, it might be a EAFC, right? They've changed the name now. It might be an NBA game, and I'm like, okay, I don't think those customers are that tied down, and I really want to push back against this notion that somehow your gaming library is going to lock you to an ecosystem. It's not. Okay, for the person that has again multiple thousands of dollars invested in a platform, yes, it would definitely be something that keeps you kind of like pinned there, but it will not lock you to it unless you have invested a tremendous amount of money, I think. But for the majority of people, I would say 90% or more of people, I don't think that that is as big a factor as these people make it seem. Phil has previously said that we lost the worst generation to lose because that's why people build a digital library and blah 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 defeatist mentality. I don't believe any of that. I truly do not believe any of that. Yes, it affects the hardcore gamers that have dozens, if not hundreds of games, but the casual gamer, I'm sorry, they don't. Like, what do they play? Like, they might play games on PlayStation Plus or Game Pass that they were renting anyway. And a lot of those games are going to be across the other ecosystem in any case. So it's like, no. Just create the great games and people will come and find your games where they are. Their library be damned. And you don't have to be the, primary place that people play their games. Like, you could just be an undeniable secondary platform for people, just like the Switch is for many people. So build the games, they will find you.
Devices they choose
Absolutely.
to play.
Yeah.
When we think about, on the other side, the developer side, just any game developer wants their game to find the biggest audience possible. That's just the nature of building a game. You want people to enjoy and participate in what you've made. And I think we're in a unique position to deliver on that just because we are the platform. We build hardware, we've got a first-party games group, and then we've got a system that ties that together, that brings together your friends, your progression, your achievements, all of that. And I think that's really what has contributed to the momentum.
I mean, is that a big an advantage? Because you could say the exact same thing for PlayStation. I think the only thing that you could point out is that if you buy a PlayStation game on PC, which is primarily available through Steam and Epic, then you will not have that cross progression. That's fair enough. But isn't that the same thing for Xbox titles that are bought through Steam as well? Like, is there like a Microsoft? I don't know actually. I don't know if there's a Microsoft account that kind of like, no matter where you buy a game on Steam or Epic Game Store or the Windows Store, or through PC Game Pass, and it will synchronize all of your like saves automatically no matter where you purchase the game. I don't think that it works like that. I think if you buy a title on Steam, then it loses that cross progression with Xbox. But I would have to double check that. If you guys know, leave it in the comment and then I will not make the same error again.
Behind some of these communities.
Yeah,
Otherwise, just a
absolutely. I mean, when
PlayStation.
you look at, just step back and you look at the history of the industry, we've moved from a place where it used to be that someone built and launched a game to accelerate hardware to actually the things we do with our hardware and with our platform are all in service of making those games bigger. And we think about that across all of the investments we make, the consoles we build, the investments we do with things like cross-play, cross-progression, the things that we're doing
just
with
saying the
cloud.
same thing.
How do we actually give more options to game creators so they can have the greatest success? I think one of the fun recent examples about this is actually Power World. Power World was able to launch, they were a game preview, they launched in Game Pass, they also simultaneously launched in Steam. And through the combination of those things, Pocket Pair was able to have this outsized success, and it was the largest third-party Game Pass launch ever. And that's all because we give creators options on how they can launch.
Okay, I'm sorry, but how are you going to take credit for Power World when you had nothing to do with it? Like, the only thing that you have to do with it is that you've made it available through Game Pass, but it's not like Power World was somehow going to be less of a success if it hadn't been available through Game Pass. So you said that you give the creators options, but they're not your creators. If they were yours, I would understand this particular point, but they're not. They just happen to have hit a massive success, but that's completely independent from you. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that example. I think it's bad because if you do it with your own studios, absolutely go ahead and toot your own horn. But you haven't done it with your own studios.
Our games, we've got subscription, we've got retail, we've got free to play, we've got game preview, we have the consoles, we have our experience on PC, and they can access all of those things. And when we step back and we just look at the performance of our platform all up, we know it's working. We're at the highest level of users on console, the highest level of users on PC, the highest level of users on cloud ever. We have double-digit growth rate on PC and cloud, places where we're enabling creators to actually reach new players beyond the.
She says they are on the highest level of users on console, and yet they are selling less consoles than they did last generation. How does that work? Like, how does that statistic work? Is it that of the 22 or so million consoles that they've sold, those customers are the most engaged because of Game Pass? That would be an interesting stat. But otherwise, let's just say hypothetically that they have sold 25 million consoles by now on the Xbox One generation. How could you be at the highest level of users on console if you actually have less users? Yeah, that would be interesting to note how they derive that information. I really wish that there was a Q&A segment, by the public so that we could clarify some of these statements because by themselves, they always kind of give you like head scratching, like what's going on there?
Console ecosystem. And that's why we're leaning into it and doing more because we see all those signals.
So we're talking about the role that hardware plays for creators, for the games and those communities. What about the role that hardware plays for us as a business, for Xbox?
When we look at our hardware, it really is, and Phil said this earlier, it's where you get like the most flagship seminal experience of Xbox.
Unless you have the Series S.
And it also represents a developer target. Our developers can build the specs of our hardware, and we invest to make sure they know when they do that the games are going to run great on our hardware, but they're also going to be.
Unless that's Starfield and they have creative decisions to run at a log 30 frames per second, even though on something like a handheld, they can actually run at 60 frames. No, sorry. They can actually run at higher than 30. I don't know, man.
Be able to be accessed across any screen because of all the other investments we make. So we're giving them an easy way to access as many players as possible. And we actually have more creators right now building for Xbox than ever before by nature, thousands of them by nature of those investments. And we got more to come. There's some exciting stuff coming out in hardware that we're going to share this holiday. And we're also invested in the next generation roadmap. And what we're really focused on there is delivering the largest technical leap you will have ever seen in a hardware generation, which makes it better for players and better for creators in the vision.
So I like that segment. I like the very last part there where they recommit to the idea that there will be a next generation Xbox. I hope it's just a single console strategy in that generation, and I hope that it is something that is going to blow the Series X out of the water. Yeah. So I think going back to my point earlier that I wanted to make, the reason that Microsoft cannot let go of the console is simply that that's where your best customers are, okay? That's where people are going to be the most engaged into what your platform means, what its identity means, what the games that they offer as, and what they have. Because imagine if you have a person that's playing your games through a PlayStation because you've released some games on PlayStation, they're mostly going to be investing in what PlayStation is doing. Same thing for the Switch. And on PC, most of your customers are going to be on Steam. So they're mostly going to be interested in what other people are doing. The best customer for you, and I think Phil Spencer even said this at one point, is the person that buys your actual platform. And this medium makes way too much money and is going to keep making more and more money and accelerating as both of these companies, including the Nintendo, as all three of them find ways to attract new customers, whether that's going to countries or continents that they haven't been in before, whether that is using the transmedia strategy of Sony, whether that is increasing the handheld appeal that Nintendo is going for, or whether that is actually putting your games in other places that Xbox is trying to do. They are all going to bring in new customers so that the total pool of console gamers is going to improve from something like 250 million to something like 500 million. And out of those 500 million, you want them to be really attracted to your console because that's where they're going to be the most engaged. That's where they're going to give you the most support, the most playtime, the most data, and give you the most feedback as to what is working well for your business and what is not working well for the business. So again, this notion, I've always pushed back against it, that Xbox is somehow going to let go of the console, I have never fully subscribed to. And I'm incredibly thankful that she has said that there is a next generation roadmap. They are hoping for it to be like the biggest leap that we've ever seen. I question that. Because I wonder exactly how much further they can go in such a short time. Some people have kind of brought out the fact that it's a little bit early for her to be talking about the next generation already. But, this console that they are building, let's call it the Series Y, just as an example. The next generation Xbox console, this is something that they probably started 2 weeks after, shipping the Series X. Like, they ship it and then they kind of take a little break, go for a little bit of celebration, in the Bahamas or whatever, they come back a little drunk, and then they start on Monday again, and now they're thinking, okay, what are we doing for the next console? So this is something that has been in development for probably 2 years now, at the very least. So, the fact that she's semi-announcing it, I don't think that's that big an issue, because I think that the people that are watching this from the Xbox camp as part of the Xbox fan base, they definitely wanted this question answered. So, it is what it is. I don't think it's that problematic.
That they're building.
And then when we're talking about hardware too, there's these other considerations that are really important to our community, probably to each one of ourselves as well. When you talk about library, because I want to dig in on that a little bit more. As we talk about cloud in the wider entertainment industry, there's conversations about streaming. How is that impacting how I own my content that I've invested in? So what can we say about our stance around game preservation?
Okay, I'm actually going to end it here, because they go and they talk about backwards compatibility and how that is such a big deal for them. Good for them. I don't mind it. It is what it is, but I'm not that interested on it. The final thing that I will talk about is the Verge article that came out, I think, afterwards. And here Phil Spencer talks a little bit about what he's thinking and kind of clarifies some of the statements that they made during the video. So just going to do a quick touch up on it. So over here, he is asked, specifically, if the goal is more people playing games and more people discovering them, why just these 4 games and not more? You say you want to learn from this, but surely if they're hugely successful, and you see that more people are playing them, you'll do more in the future, right? He says yes, but we haven't seen that yet. So basically what he's saying there is that they imagine that this will lead to more success for their games and their platform, but they haven't seen it yet. They haven't seen it happen. So this is an experiment. This is an experimental phase. This is the first salvo, and they want to learn from exactly what happens to the market dynamics when they put those games over. Now, I've already told you, I don't believe that these 4 games, as they are rumored to be, will be that impactful. I think they will need something that's definitely bigger in order to be sure. But hey, we'll see. So over here, he's asked, you mentioned that Starfield and Indiana Jones aren't part of these four despite rumors, but will those ever come to PS5? Can you rule that out? And he says that I don't think we as an industry ever rule out the game going to another platform. We are focused on these 4 games and learning from the experience, blah, blah, blah. So here's the thing. He always hides behind the industry. Just say you as Xbox are not ready to rule out that these particular 2 games will never come to PlayStation 5. Because, listen, I'm pretty sure if I walk up to Jim Ryan right now and I say, hey, God of War Ragnarok, is it ever going to be on Xbox? He's going to say no. That's it. I mean, if he says anything at all, like, he's probably going to walk away. But the point is, he will not be as reluctant to answer the question straight as you are. Then over here, let's see what other question I want to talk about. Over here, he says something like this. Okay, I want to go back to something you mentioned in the FTC versus Microsoft case. You testified that putting Xbox games on PlayStation means that Sony uses that 30% of revenue that they get from those transactions to try to basically kill Xbox or undermine Xbox in certain ways. So why would you want to do more games on that platform if that's the case? Okay, and then he says that, well, maybe that's what we're only doing for now, right? And essentially what he explains here in his answer is that if the net result, he says, is that other things that are punitive to the Xbox platform and try to limit our growth, then we'll have to think more carefully about how we support those other platforms. So essentially what he's saying is this, like, hey, listen, we are going to put those games on PlayStation, but let's say that one day we put a game like, let's say, Sea of Thieves, and it's tremendously successful on the PlayStation to the point where it makes Sony a lot of money. And then Sony, we see, takes that money to then stop all the exclusive games or build their own exclusives or basically try to make our life more difficult. And then we see that that wasn't worth it. We are going to slow down this initiative. That's basically what he's trying to say here. But what this definitely tells me is that this is again meant to be experimental. They are going to see how this plays out, but I'm not sure exactly how you think that Sony is going to use that money. If you give Sony more money, they will use it to grow their business and they will use it to try to crush yours. Because while you keep saying that Xbox is not in competition with PlayStation, PlayStation fully knows they're in competition with you. So it's like you can try to do whatever you want, but Sony will steamroll you if they have to in order to get to the next, in order to sell 200 million PS5s. Yes, they would do everything that they can to take every single customer away from Xbox. Absolutely, as they should. And they will do every single thing that they can to take every single customer away from the Nintendo Switch if they could, right? And best believe that Nintendo is in the same ballgame. Nintendo isn't going to be satisfied with selling 170 million Switches or whatever. They would like to sell 300 million. Like, these are for-profit organizations. And Phil Spencer is the only leader talking like this, and it's absolute bullshit. So yes, I'm sorry. Like, it doesn't matter if you give PlayStation 30 cents or $30 million. They will use every single part of that money to grow their business at your expense. And so I don't know what it is that you're saying, like, oh, if it's punitive to the platform. I think what he's saying is that if it doesn't work the way he imagines that it works, because I think he imagines that a PlayStation gamer will look at Sea of Thieves or whatever, and then they will then be like, oh, I should really get an Xbox so I can just play this on Game Pass. I think he's trying to attract people to his platform through PlayStation and Switch. And I don't think that's going to work. But I could be wrong. So it is what it is. Okay, is there any final questions there that I wanted to go over? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so he says that switching to the hardware side of the equation, you mentioned new console and controller options, and then he basically says that he doesn't know anything about it, which is a good answer. What else does he say? Does those plans involve handhelds? Okay, so he says here that he's a big fan of handhelds, and then he keeps going through the particular things, saying that hey, he's got the Steam Deck, he's got the ROG, he's got the Legion Go, he's got kind of like all of these things in mind when he's thinking about where they can take Windows. And over here he says this thing specifically here: we do have real work. One of the weak points in the experience of a ROG or the Lenovo Legion Go is Windows. How Windows works on controller input only on that kind of DPI on a smaller 8 or 7 inch screen. That's a real design point that our platform team is working with Windows to make sure that the experience is even better. So what I think here is that there's two possible scenarios, maybe three, but the way that I imagine it in my mind is, number one, they could say like, hey, Windows team, we are the gaming arm of Microsoft. Let's work together so that when a person releases a handheld like a MSI Claw, a Legion Go, a ROG Ally, all of these things, you can put this customized version of either the Xbox app or even the Windows dashboard that we've worked with you, that we've play tested and everything like that, so that can be an even better experience on those handhelds. So that's the first option. The second option kind of goes in hand. They could, as well as doing the first thing, they could then say, okay, let's create our own version of a handheld, okay? And then that is going to basically be our own first party version of an even better experience. It could be even more tightly integrated into the Xbox ecosystem. So that could be the second thing that they do. And of course it would learn a lot from their first initiative, which is to just make the handheld experience better for Windows overall. And then I think the third option would be something like creating an Xbox specific app, or no, an Xbox specific operating system that is made available to the manufacturers of Legion Go and all of these other handhelds to be like, hey, don't install Windows on your Steam Deck, don't install the full suite, just install this Xbox OS on your handhelds, and then when you boot it up, you basically be greeted with the Xbox dashboard and everything that is laid out that way. It would have to have a Steam integration, but they wouldn't necessarily need to have anything other than an app for that. And then maybe it would allow its customers to switch between the Xbox kind of like overlay versus the Steam overlay, and they will basically flip between Xbox mode or Steam big picture mode, and that could be like the way that they create this hybrid kind of platform. So either way, it's exciting no matter what it is. Getting more gamers to play through the handheld mode has definitely been a boon to the industry, and I think that should be another part as to how do we answer bringing more people into gaming. And there's going to be some people that for them the Legion Go, the ROG Ally, the MSI Claw, or future versions of those devices are going to be their primary way to play console quality games. So, and it's also good to kind of claw people back away from mobile games, okay? Because mobile games are just, they're not the experience that I want. So being able to, take out maybe, let's say, even 10% of mobile gamers and add them to our side, to add them to console gaming, that would definitely be a great thing. So then he talks about the mobile side, which I'm not that interested in, because they're talking about games like, Candy Crush, like, Jesus Christ, not that interested. Then he talks a little bit about the regulation, about how, Apple and everything is kind of putting some blockage when it comes to putting their, their particular stores on those operating systems. I don't have any comments on that. It is what it is. And then he says, final question, with more Xbox games coming to PS5 and Switch, what is Xbox to Microsoft now? And this is a very fluff answer. It says that Xbox is our gaming platform and content business. It's the number one consumer business that Microsoft has. This is another reason why they can't lose it, okay? They cannot afford to lose Xbox or to undermine Xbox to such a degree. I think you might have commented on looking at last quarter's earnings. We are now the third largest business in the company, so that's interesting. It's an important business. It's a consumer category that is driven by technology and creativity. It's partner-led and everything like that. So yeah, it's very fluff answer. And again, you can go and read the entire thing at this particular article by Tom Warren at The Verge. Make sure you go and give them a click. But yeah, so that is basically it. I finally got through. The entire thing. Jesus Christ. At the end of the day, it was a lot of talk and he said very little. I think that's my issue with it. It didn't answer the fundamental questions that I wanted answered, but it did give us enough promises, I think, to the future of Xbox to know that it will be, I think, in a good place, okay? Because, again, the console is going to be there. They are still going to try to create powerful hardware, hopefully. And I hope that they try to create hardware that is way more powerful than what the PlayStation can do, right? Like, I really hope that they go I really hope they go for gold. This generation around, they didn't create the most powerful hardware. They didn't create the world's most powerful console, despite their marketing it as such. Because, again, when it comes to a hardware platform, you cannot just take a single spec out of bounds and be like, hey, T-flops proves that this is more powerful. It doesn't work that way. It has to be the entire thing that is more powerful, and those have to be shown in the results. So, unfortunately, the results have shown that the Xbox is just about as powerful as the PlayStation, and that's not what we wanted. So, next time around, that will be the third time that they're going for the crown, because they had the Xbox One X, which was more powerful than the PlayStation 4 Pro unequivocally, and that was great. They have the Xbox Series X, which is just about the same as the PlayStation 5. So that's a downer. And then I hope that the Xbox Series Y, or whatever it is that is going to be called, is going... Actually, the Xbox Series Z. That sounds better. Z. It's like, yeah, the Xbox Series Z is going to be, like a tectonic shift. And hopefully it is way more powerful again than the PlayStation, because that is one thing, when people talk about, Microsoft should be here as a competitor to PlayStation, I think that should begin with hardware, because if your hardware is just about the same, PlayStation has too many advantages that it can bring forward to basically render you neutralized. So, in any case, I'm done, guys. I'm done. This was a incredibly long video to put together, and I'm looking forward to certain moments that are going to happen in the timeline, because Call of Duty going to Game Pass ended. That's going to be interesting. These games coming to PlayStation 5 and Switch, that's going to be interesting. and sort of like what games are next. Because I don't think that what matters is the news today. I think what matters is the direction, because now you have basically opened the bottle cap, and you can't ever seal it back up again. Some of the gas has come out, and you're going to basically accept the reality that your games are no longer exclusives to platforms where Game Pass exists. And I am always going to keep that in mind. And I think the majority of people that are paying attention are going to keep that in mind. So we'll see what happens. It should be interesting.